Welcome to Real Life Fiction. I'm Matt James with Conundrum Publishing, international best-selling author of the Jack Riley Adventure Series. And today we're talking to author Rick Chesler. Hey, Rick, what's going on? How you doing? Thank you for coming on.
Hey there, Matt. Thank you for having me on. Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good, doing well. Not enjoying our current weather that you and I have to live with in South Florida.
Right?
So at least you're getting maybe a little more breeze than I am. I mean, I am close to the coast out here, but I'm like 20 minutes from the beach, but you're basically on it.
Right. Well, it's very warm down here in the Keys. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. People, oh, the Keys, oh, South Florida. Oh, I'm like, yeah, give me an O when you see the humidity down here. Come
Yep.
back to me. Come back to me. I know it's the cliche. Oh, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. No, it is. It absolutely is. I've been in the desert several times. It's not this.
Right.
So for those that don't know who you are, I can't imagine anyone at least in the action adventure genre doesn't at least recognize your name. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Rick. What's going on with you?
Sure. Well, my name's Rick Chesler, and I write action, adventure, and thriller novels. I have, I think, 33, maybe 34 titles, either published or self-published, and some of these are co-authored. Some are novella length, but most of them are novels by myself. And I've written also in the thriller genre, and creature horror, and some various experimental things, sci-fi and stuff like that. But I have an action adventure series that I just started writing book 4 of, and that is my Omega Files. Book 1 is Atlantis Gold. Book 2 is Ark Found. Book 3 is Golden One. And book 4 is not yet titled, but I started writing. The prologue is done. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with these yourself, Matt, but these are kind of appealing to fans of Clive Cussler. So there'll be a historical prologue based on some real life event in the past. And then for example, in Ark Found, it was the sinking of the Titanic. And then chapter 1 starts in present day with a search for some relic or something having to do with that event. So it's a very well-known formula for people who are fans of that genre. And so I'm starting book 4 of that series now.
Cool. Any chance we can at least get a hint on what it's going to revolve around, maybe? Or
so it revolves around the search for a biblical relic,
okay,
well-known biblical artifact, and
sure.
that's along the lines of Ark Found was about the search for Noah's Ark, and this one I'm not prepared to divulge exactly what it's about at this time, but it is a well-known biblical artifact.
Early in the process, there's a little hush hush that needs to happen until until we get far enough into it. I get it. You and I also have something else in common, is that we've actually done some co-author work with David Wood, an amazing action adventure author. I'm actually kind of curious on how did you get involved with his you did a lot of the Dane and Bones origins, and then you and I also did when what was it called, Kindle it wasn't around for long, so I can't remember the name.
Kindle Worlds, I believe.
Kindle Worlds, thank you. Yeah. We did a few titles in that world as well. But how did you end up getting hooked up with Dave when it comes to his Dane Maddox stuff?
So, wow, this was a while ago. I think it was around 2014 or so. And okay. I had just been, I was publishing with a small press called Variants for my first book called Wired Kingdom. And then David Wood was involved. He was in the writing community with his own publishing company called Griffinwood.
Yep.
I believe now he goes by Adrenaline Press for the action adventure anyway.
Yeah, he has like an imprint. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was putting out an origin series of his well-known Dane Maddock adventure series, and he just asked me if I would like to co-author one of those with him, and I said yes. And these are short, like novellas, about 40,000 words or so. And I think the first one I did with him was called Splashdown. And then I did another one called Electra, about the search for Amelia Earhart's airplane.
Yeah, Electra. Yep.
We did one called Amber, about the search for the Amber Room from World War II. And so these are just classic action adventures with his characters, Dane and Bones. And I had a lot of fun doing those with him.
Yeah, same. I would still be writing more books with him if I just had the time to do it, honestly.
Right.
I did a Berserk, which was about Odin's berserkers, Norse mythology. That was a Dane and Bones adventure. And then for a while, I moved exclusively into the Bones Bone Break side stories, and I did 3 of them in that. And they all did very well. It's just there's just not enough time in the day to keep up with it as fast as I'd like. So I need to get back into it, and I need to write a few more Bone stories with him.
Absolutely.
But it's, I mean, we got to pick and choose projects, I guess. And unfortunately, for no fault of his or no fault of lack of sales, it's just time.
Absolutely. That's a big part of being a writer. Picking your projects.
Picking your projects. Yeah. Especially depending on how fast you write. Research wise, time wise, we both have families, and there's just a lot to do, and there's only so many productive hours in the day. You can do it all day and all night, but it's not going to be productive hours.
Right.
And that's where you just have to call it quits and go to bed.
I tried to split it up. You can do the business of writing during some hours, and actually writing at other times, and that helps refresh your mind a little bit. But still, even to that, there's a limit.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Like when I'm too tired to actually do anything like creative, I'll just do a little research here and there, or do a little artwork, covers that I put together, just to stay productive in some way. Or in this case, I'm doing the show now, so like I'll get a actual break from work and be able to talk to people like you and enjoy these conversations for an hour or however long we go. But no, I completely understand. I just want to do something within the industry, within the world.
And congratulations, by the way, Matt, on the conundrum, and
thank you. Long time coming. Like I've said before, I did a little full-time writing about 6 or so years ago, but it was not purposed. It was me in between jobs, and doing enough to stay afloat, but then realizing I still need a little other income. So got back into the workforce. Between books, between starting to work with Nick at Conundrum Publishing, I'm super excited. So, doing a lot of the media stuff like this, and then also just writing as much as humanly possible, more than I have in a long time. So it's great. It's great. I'm super excited. Cool. The other thing I wanted to kind of get into is, so specifically guys that kind of guys and girls that kind of live in our genre, in that action adventure genre. We've both deviated from it for one reason or another, just because there were stories we wanted to tell. But I know you and I more or less live in that action adventure genre, those archaeological finds and that kind of stuff. For me, I don't need to repeat it for me, but why are you so enthralled with that genre?
Well, one reason is just goes back to my literary influences. As a kid, I would read, as a teenager, I would read Clive Cussler's original Dirk Pitt series. The original Mediterranean Caper, Iceberg, Raise the Titanic, all those, and Pacific Vortex, and I really they captured my imagination. I really just enjoyed the format that he set up with those historical prologues, and that you could base fiction on real life events like that, and then also he was real detailed about his underwater scenes. I'm a scuba diver for a long time now, and so that appealed to me. You know, the underwater scenes and the I just thought it was great the way that he presented these stories in a very entertaining, but also at least somewhat historically accurate way.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely one thing we don't have in common is I can't stand the ocean. Uh, you quite literally live on it. So knowing you for the 7 or 8 years I've known you now, but yeah. So whenever it comes to like oceanic stuff, boats, underwater, and scuba, anything, I have to be very, very, very careful with how deep I'm willing to go into it because I know it's very easy to get wrong because there's so many just misconceptions with that world, and
Right.
I couldn't sit here and talk to you about it like intelligently without asking you for reference and help. So
Well, I know
it's
how it is. Yeah, for me,
yeah,
it's airplanes. You know, he has a lot of
sure.
aircraft, and I'm not a pilot, so I have to
Yeah.
research all that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a know your role or stay in your lane type of thing. Like
Right.
I'm not, there's certain parts of the storytelling that I just have to be like very either purposely vague just because it's like if I get too deep down that rabbit hole, it'll be very obvious that I'm inexperienced in it. Or it just needs a ton of research, and I'll like leave myself a gap in the book to come back to later in order to like
Yeah.
fill it in because I don't want to stop the story to do a ton of research.
Right. And I know weapons
Yeah,
is another big area. You know
yeah,
that I know you do some shooting, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
that helps. That helps because you're familiar with it. I'm not, you know, a gun owner myself. I'm not, so I have to research all those kinds of details about weapons, aircraft.
sure.
And I think everyone has things that they need that nobody can know about everything, right? That comes up in all these thrillers. So you
No,
have to
yeah,
have some research abilities, you know, and enjoy looking things up, which I do.
oh yeah,
So
no. I mean that's it's as simple as seeing an image for an inspiration for a whole new novel. You know, I mean it's incredible what one picture can do to well, you or me, you know, as far as a writer, you see like a certain image of something, and you're like, oh man, I need to write about that. And then you dive into like a world of research and
yeah,
all of a sudden you have a full length novel and you're done. And you're like, wow, that came from one picture. It's
yeah,
I mean, it's all it takes sometimes. It's all it takes.
it's a rabbit
So
hole. Yeah.
yeah. So what about like more like entertainment? So like I mean we can all owe what we do to like Indiana Jones and like stuff like that. But I mean, was there anything else that really kind of got piqued your interest young and you were like, man, I really love this stuff. And
Yeah.
then as you started writing, it was like it just like took off from there.
So Michael Crichton's books really had an influence on me, you know, especially not only Jurassic Park, although that was huge,
Sure.
but, you know, Spear and Congo. I just like the way that he presented these kind of action adventure scenarios, but with a real hyper realistic, like technical level of
Sure.
detail.
Yeah.
So he is another big influence on me in that way.
Yeah, no, I get that, and you know, for me, it's always been guys like Matthew Riley, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
and Jeremy Robinson. I mean, he
sure.
was probably the first author that I've also gotten to know, which is great. But he's probably the first author that I was really like, holy crap! Like you can do so much with history because he goes like above and beyond with like the sci-fi part of it. But
Yeah,
like we try to do is you try to ground it in realistic history. But reading,
I think
especially his chess team series, I'm just like I'm
uh-huh.
always floored by
I
the
read Antarctic Rising was my first by him that I read.
yeah. My first was Kronos,
Nice.
his basically his iteration of Jonah and the Whale.
Yeah, that was
And
good. I
then
read that.
Antarctos Rising was my second one, mostly because I had just finished reading the what was it called? Raising Atlantis by Thomas Grianis.
Yeah,
Uh, that was a really big one for me too.
yeah.
That whole series was great, and I saw that this was another author's version of the Tale of Atlantis, but I mean, Jeremy did it in an entirely different way, and then it spurred the Antarctos saga short stories, which are also some of my favorites.
Right.
And it's just, I just dove into his entire portfolio after that. I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. And then he goes into like a lot of horror stuff.
Yeah. The chess
like,
team series was great too, kind of
yeah.
Riley influence.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The Jack Riley stuff for me is big. That's where or the influence for Jack Riley is big as Matthew Riley, because that's Matthew Riley and Jack West Jr. That's where the name I'm like, I need to pay homage to, you know, and there we are. But as far as the archaeology, it's always it's always Indy. He's the start of it all for me. As I've previously said, that was my big thing as a kid versus like Star Wars and Star Trek. I was the Indiana Jones guy. It was like I had the hats, the shirts, the posters, everything, and
good stuff.
And now, you know, it's more modern with like Uncharted and Tomb Raider and that stuff. But
that's good.
Yeah,
the video games have some good action adventure too these days.
Oh yeah, I mean, the Uncharted series is by far my favorite video game series ever, because it's the storytelling, the cinematics. It's just it's more than a game to me. It's like the movie, and you know, there's the acting, the characters, you just kind of fall for them, and that's just great storytelling, is when you actually care what happens to a fictional character.
Right, and I enjoy the Assassin's Creed, franchise myself, and Far Cry. Those are good stories.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, again, that's, I guess, the writers coming out in us, where like The Last of Us, I dive into a little bit of like the monsters and post-apocalyptic stuff in my Dead Moon series, but that's kind of a veer away from what I usually do, just because I also really do enjoy those characters and that story. But when I first started playing the Last of Us series, it was like, it also is made by Naughty Dog, who does Uncharted. So same idea. The writing is just phenomenal. The dialogue's awesome. The characters are so believable. And it's like, when you can capture that in any medium, not just books, movies, video games, in this case, you have a winner. I mean, you absolutely have a winner. I absolutely loved it. So speaking of that, since we're both, writers, and there's like different processes, I would be very interested to know, you usually have like two sides of the coin when it comes to writers. You have the Uber outliners, the guys that literally write a book before they write a book, which is not me, totally not me. And then you have the guys that the pantsers is what we call them. You write by the seat of your pants. I lean more that way, though I'm not completely off the cuff. I do kind of have a direction that I'm following, but I am not at all afraid to deviate from it. Where do you fall in that like line? Like, what is your process when you decide, like, a newer book that you're writing? I want to write about this subject. Where does it go from there? Like, what does it look like?
So I can tell you, Matt, after 30 plus books, I've done it both ways, every which way in between. I've tried outlining chapter by chapter all the way through, and then following that to the end. I've also tried just pantsing it completely, just seat of my pants the whole way through with no outline.
Sure.
And what I kind of found is, although if you do the thorough outlines, it's nice once you start writing, because you get to that point where you end a chapter and you don't have to think about what's next. You just look at your outline and you know how to keep going. Whereas if you don't have the outline, you might be tired, it's late at night, and you don't want to figure out what's next, and so you call it a night. Before you can figure out, you're like, I'll figure it out, I'll sleep on it. So I think the writing goes faster if you do outline it, even though it takes some time up front to do the outline. But it also, I find that things usually change. I'll think of something better, like in the course of writing out the early chapters, and I don't want to use what I outlined, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, yeah. You can stumble upon a better option.
Yeah. And what I've been doing most, like for my current book, this is I would say the most common method I've been using is to outline the first few chapters. Like, I'll know the beginning, and maybe through like chapter 3 or 4, I have an outline with maybe like a paragraph for each chapter.
Sure.
And that'll give me, and in my mind, I know kind of what the ending will entail, but it's not outlined. Mm-hmm. And that's how I've been doing it. And for for the action adventure stuff, that works pretty good for me. I'll start writing it. And by the time I get to the end of what I had outlined, maybe 3 or 4 chapters and a prologue, I'll outline the next 3 chapters ahead. Like I'll know, okay, I'll put a paragraph for the next 3 chapters adding to my outline, and then I'll write those.
Sure.
And then I'll outline the next. So I'm kind of outlining 3 or 4 chapters ahead as I draft it.
Yeah, you're basically preaching to the choir. That's exactly what I do. I am also very old school. I don't know about you, is I use yellow ledger pads for all my books. So I'm literally like not highlighting, but I'll like asterisk like specific notes that I find more important than others. And like
whatever works.
Yeah. And there's a lot of studies that have happened, and they're 100% true, is if you write down your thought versus typing it into your phone, you're more apt to remember it because of your brain in your hand and the pen and the actual thought process of writing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I know I have notes in my phone right now that I have completely no idea what they say, because it was on a whim. I was walking through the mall or wherever, pull out my phone, get into my notes app, write down something. Oh, that would be cool for the book. And then 4 months later, I remember it. And I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
This would have been cool. But it was so nonchalant that I didn't remember it. But my notes, I remember going, I think I wrote that down, and I'll go right through my notes. I even tried the voice app.
Yeah. Yeah. Occasionally I just dictate stuff into my phone if I'm walking down the street or whatever.
Yeah.
But even that, then I have to like pull it up later and transcribe it or something. And I know a lot of writers these days are all about Scrivener, which I haven't used myself. I'm still a Word guy. I'm still using Microsoft Word,
Yeah, I'm using Word, much to the chagrin of Nick. And Nick and I are writing a series together, the Zarkane Adventures, archaeological thrillers. And him and I partnered to write this series, and he's Scrivener and I'm Word. And I'm like, you're never switching me over. I'm like, I've been using Word literally my entire adult life. And now it's Office or whatever they call it, but it's still, it's still the Word app. Yeah. And I can fly through that app. I know where everything is, editing, everything. I'm like, I'm a Microsoft Word guy, and it's always, it's not going to change, Luckily,
so I do my outlines in that. I mean, and that's how I usually have a file that's an outline, a file that's the actual manuscript in Word, and then a file for notes, like just research notes.
Yeah. I have, so I'm the yellow ledger pad guy. So everything I do, I'm writing notes down on the ledger pad. And then I guess probably most of us, we know exactly where we want to start the story. Because that's like the thing that we've probably been pining over for weeks or maybe even months. And like the current book I'm writing, the 4th Jack Riley book, is my iteration of Shangri-La. That book was supposed to be a part of another series like 5 years ago. So I've been like chomping at the bit to write this story, and finally found the opportunity to do it. And so for me, the start of this book was like 25 chapters. It was just because I've been like thinking about this story for literally years. Just different characters, different situation. But I'm the same way. I'll at least get the story started, and then about 2-3 chapters ahead, I'll just have a couple of paragraphs at most, just to kind of direct me. But then as the time goes by, as I'm putting the story together, I'll find something else that's cool as I'm doing more research on location, and go, oh, I wonder how I can include that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do that instead.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Like I said, I have tried it with no outline at all, just going for it. But I find that while I still wrote something that I was happy with and completed it, it just took a long time. Took longer than it does if I have at least some kind of outline.
Yeah, because you're starting and stopping constantly, because you're, that's where you can do as much research as you want, but you're not going to remember half of it. So that's where a lot of your outline comes into play, is you can at least do some notations on the research. Or like I have I don't know how many windows you have open all the time, but like my Firefox right now. I'm near the end of my book, so I have like 8, but usually it's at least 12. And it's all the way back, and it's random stuff like, in this case, with the book being based in, Nepal, Tibet, that whole area, I'm looking up like the weapons used in the Chinese military, what guns does the Nepalese army use? Because I'm
Right.
like, you're traveling internationally as like a clandestine agent. You're not bringing your own stuff with you. You're probably going to have to acquire. And when you acquire, you're acquiring what's local. So what's local? And then, of course, now I have like 5 tabs open of just guns. I'm like,
Right. But you know, I when I first started writing, like a long time ago, 20 years ago or so, the research online wasn't what it is now. Like there was
oh,
no
I can't
Google
imagine.
Earth, there was
No.
no YouTube. Like for example, I've never been to Istanbul, right? But I can go to YouTube and watch people's vacation videos walking down the street for a
Yep.
certain year and really see what it's like. And that's, you know, something you couldn't do more than 10 years, you know, I don't know how many years ago, but
Yeah.
certainly 20 years or more. You know, it was a much different type of research.
Yeah, I did that recently with the first Zara Kane book that Nick is now working on his own end. But I was like, what the heck does the inside of the pyramid at Giza look like?
Exactly.
And like there's pictures, but I'm like these still don't feel like complete. I'm like, it just, you know, I'm like, there's got to be more. There's got to be
Right.
a different like feel to it, because like my family owned a recording studio for a decade, and I know you're a musician, but I know what it feels like to be in a soundproof chamber, and that's what I would imagine being inside a stone temple would feel
Right.
like. But I'm like, that's not what the pictures look or feel like. They just look like almost like a photo or a painting. Like, so you
Right.
look up these travel videos and these blogs or these vlogs, and you
Uh-huh.
watch people walk through these things on camera, and you're like, and you get like the scope and you get like the scale of it. And you're
Exactly.
like, wow,
Yeah.
this is
Plus, archaeologists are always discovering new chambers, and it's changing all the time what they know.
yep, yep.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and then of course, you know, your book's done, it's released, and then something cool gets released about the subject you just wrote about, and you're like, oh, I missed the boat on that one.
Yeah. Right.
But so speaking to that, I know you are very, very, very much into music,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing that is a old time love of yours and kind of a kind of way to blow off some steam as well.
Exactly. I've been playing music since I was a little kid. So,
Yeah,
always been a part-time thing of mine. And
sure.
so yeah, it's nice to get away from the computer now and then, as I'm sure you know,
Yeah.
when you're a writer, especially if you're full-time, I mean, it's a pretty solitary thing.
Yep.
Even though you have, you know, editors and online collaborators or what have you, you're still mostly sitting in front of a computer by yourself, you know. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
nice to have something to go out and do in person, you know, that's fun.
Yeah.
And
I guess I'm like, maybe just because I guess I'm more fresh into the full-time aspect of it, but when I quit my job, I couldn't wait to get away from people.
yeah, I hear that.
But I
Yeah.
also worked retail almost my entire adult life in different facets. But it's kind of one of those things where it was like I was like ready to just like for a big change, and you know, now this is a huge change. But so for me,
Right.
it's fresh. I mean, a few years down the road, I remember when I was writing for about a year and a half, 2 years full time. I remember going into my interview for the job that I ended up getting, how awkward I felt. Just because, and I'm not that. I am like the most extroverted person out there. Like, I don't care. Like, I prefer to be home and doing nothing, but I am very comfortable in a crowd. I'm very comfortable speaking publicly. I'm very comfortable talking to strangers, anybody I don't know. But it's like, so when I went back to work and I started at the job, I was like, I feel so weird. Like, and I guess
Right.
that was because my brain and just my whole, like, you know, it's just you change, and you know, eventually I just got back into it like it was nothing. But I'm actually kind
Yeah.
of hoping I can go back to that. I want to be kind of more like at peace and solitary. And you know, my
Well,
kids, I got 2 girls at 9 and 5, my dog, my cat. I'm like, I got plenty to keep me going. Uh
yeah. Yeah,
but
I think the whole pandemic, you know, if
yep,
you could say there was a good thing about it, it kind of opened people's minds up to working from home and what that's
sure.
like.
Yeah, absolutely. And So my previous episode, I talked to Andrew Clausen, who's another amazing action adventure author, and we had talked about very. I would probably say we probably could have been a little more sympathetic, or at least I could have been. That was my fault. But when I said the pandemic actually created an opportunity in a positive way for a lot of people, and what I ended up correcting myself, meaning that there's avenues for work, and in our case, books, to where book sales have never been better nationally. I mean, and that's just because people had nothing else to do, or if they did, they were too scared to go out and do it, and which is completely understandable. You know, I'm not saying anything negative about that. You know, I went through it with my parents because they both have respiratory issues, so and they were like timid, and and I'm like, I completely get it. And I work in retail. We never got shut down. My company never got shut down. We actually worked more. We extended business hours because we were so busy. So we worked 100% through this pandemic. And that was probably another reason why I needed to get out so bad, is because I was so burnt out from that grind that I was like, we just got mentally beat to death. And I was like, I'm toast. I'm so out of here. I'm so done. But I needed an opportunity. I wasn't just going to leave a job and start over at another job that I wasn't happy with. So stuck it out until this opportunity arose, and here I am. So I'm glad I did, because this is great. This is great. This is wonderful. But I don't know if you know about this about me. Back to the music thing, is I was actually in a band for 6 years. So back in like, it would be like early high school to after high school. So I was probably like 14, 15, 16, all the way through like 19, 20. And now I have
what did instrument you play?
Cat on my desk, if you can see a tail whipping.
I see that. Yeah. I got a couple cats myself.
That's Jack.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, that's Jack Skellington, the black cat. But yeah, so I was in a punk rock and roll band called Middle Class Chaos.
And what did you play?
Drums. I was a drummer.
Nice. Okay, that's what I play. So very cool.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah, I was a drummer. We played quite a bit down here in the Palm Beach area, West Palm Beach. But we played up into we would play up into like Melbourne. We got down into like Lauderdale, North Miami area as well, playing with some bands. We got the opportunity actually to open for Black Flag, and opening for it was a reunion tour that Henry Rollins and Keith Morris put on. If people don't know who Black Flag is, they were a revolutionary punk band from the 70s and 80s.
Well, Henry Rollins he's a great writer himself.
Yes, he is. Public speaker. He's a great personality. He's done some acting. But so what happened was Keith Morris and Henry were the two vocalists for the bands in separate eras of that band. And they actually got together and brought back Black Flag for a reunion tour. But what was great about them is they only toured with one other band full time, and then they would have 2 or 3 local bands open at every stop. So it was a great way to do it, because obviously it saved them money, but it was also cool because Henry's very much into the local scene. He's really cool about it. And we got picked up as one of the openers for the show. And I just remember being on stage playing our set, and I like literally 40 feet from me is Henry Rollins watching my entire set. He watched entire set from every band, start to finish. It was amazing to hang out with that maniac. I mean, he's a great dude. He was so nice. He was so supportive. But that was kind of like the highlight of my music career. And
very cool.
Yeah. And then, you're young and you need a job, and then it just doesn't fit as far as the gigs on the weekends and stuff. So stop playing, unfortunately. I can still get behind a set occasionally. My brother-in-law plays, so I get behind his set occasionally. And I'll kind of wail away and just kind of feel 20 years younger. But
nice.
But no, yeah, I'm, like I said, I was super happy to bring you on so we could talk.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Was there anything else you wanted to kind of bring up as far as your work, as far as anything we can talk about, just to give a little more information to our listeners? Anything at all?
I do have a couple of new standalone releases. One is called Deep Green. And this is kind of an action adventure set in the rainforest in the Amazon about this search. for COVID-19 cure in a medicinal plant. That came out a couple months ago, I believe. And then I have another one called Extremophile. That's kind of a thriller about a revolutionary swimming pool cleaning product that is comprised of unusual microbes called extremophiles from around the world. And so there's a big action adventure component in that, but overall it's kind of a suspense thriller. So those are my two most recent releases, and you can find them on Amazon.com, on Audible for the audiobook version. And there's paperback editions as well that you can get on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. So those are my most recent releases. And what I'm currently working on, as we discussed, is book 4 in the Omega Files Action Adventure series. And you can look for that, I would say, probably around Christmas time, maybe January.
Okay,
right
cool.
around there.
Cool.
Should be a pre-order.
I'm pretty sure I know the cover artist that you've used recently too.
Yeah, right. Yes, and I gotta say, I love your covers, Matt. Very nice design. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're I'm happy to do the work when somebody needs it. So I'm always willing to give it a shot. I don't always get the covers right. There's been authors that have brought me work for covers, and the description of what they want is like 13 sentences long, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like,
I find that newer authors tend to try and overdo the covers and put too many elements into them. You know.
Yeah, and I'm not an artist by any standard. So when it's that custom, I'm like, look, I can do what I describe as a book cover. Like there's very simple elements that book covers have, and I feel like I can do them well. But some guys, they want like that over the top, like sci-fi cover. And I'm like, that's not my expertise. I will gladly decline the job instead of waste a bunch of time, and my time specifically, for a cover that you're not going to like. So, depending on what is needed, and, the covers I've done for you, you've been like, I need this and this, go to town.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I get good feedback on those from the readers too. And they, one other thing that people don't always consider is they need to look pretty crisp and clear in thumbnail format. So when you're looking at them on a little phone or whatever, you can still get the idea and recognize that's one of those books I like, as far as genre or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Rick, I think we are good. We are approaching our 40-minute mark, which is exactly where I want to sit with these. Before we sign off, can you at least tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find you, specifically website? Obviously, your work's going to be all over Amazon, like you said. But between social media, between your website, where can we find you?
So I do have an author website at rickchesler.com. I also have a Facebook page at facebook.com/Rick Chesler. And I'm on Twitter at Rick Chesler. So those are my main platforms that I use to promote my work. And you can always email me at rick@rickchesler.com.
Yeah, it's the classic author email. Mine is matt@mattjamesauthor.com. So I get it. That's the way. What do I put? I'm the only guy here. So it's like, well, thank you, Rick, so much. I'm happy we got to sit down and talk.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. For those watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends. For those listening on the audio
that
format,
like button.
Smash it. That's right. I got to get the YouTube lingo down. I watch enough channels that I should know this.
11-year-old, so
yeah, maybe that's what I need to do. I need to have my daughter sit down with me, my 9-year-old sit down with me, and like, how can Daddy be better at YouTube? But yeah, and the audio only podcast, same thing. Subscribe, like, tell your friends. The way that this gets bigger and the way that this gets done more often is the listeners and the viewers. If you guys can really help us out and get this thing going, we are going to be blown up quick. I already have a lot of shows scheduled, so I would like to keep that going and make it absolutely worth every second of the day to get this done. So thank you so much, Rick, for coming on. I really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
You're welcome. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.